So, hi everybody. My name is Larry Glickman, and I just broke Michael's clicker. Michael, I'm just bad. I am the Director of Network Engagement and Collaboration for the Union for Reform Judaism, and with almost 900 member congregations, the URJ is the largest Jewish movement in North America. We engage almost 13,000 movement leaders in our external Yammer network that we call the Tent. Our use case for Yammer is somewhat unique, so I thought I would explain why we first chose to use this as a way to engage our lay and professional leaders throughout the reform movement, what we have learned along the way, and what we expect to be happening in the months to come, and I'm happy to answer any questions along the way. And I became an MVP at the beginning of the year. And I've been working at the URJ for a little over 6 years. So before we launched the Tent, for years, lay and professional leaders in the reform movement had been using something called the Shamash listservs. The listserv was launched in like 1989, I think. And by the time I got involved in this in 2012 or so, it really hadn't changed that much. It was a company that was owned by a chiropractor in Long Island that he ran in his free time. And people used this a lot. This was the main way that folks in the reform movement kept in touch. Were they happy with the listserv? Were they thrilled with the listserv? No. Were they begging for a change? No. This was the tool that they had, so it was used. I guess our chiropractor friend in Long Island got to the point where he realized this was not going to be the source of income that I think he hoped that it would be, and he announced that he was going to shut the Shamash listservs down. And the URJ saw this as an opportunity to come in and create a new platform to take its place. We wanted to provide a real knowledge network for the leaders of our congregations, a space to connect, a space to share, and a space to create networking opportunities as well. So in 2013, we first launched the Tent as a series of SharePoint sites to replace the listserv. We spent a lot of time on this. We invested a lot of capital in this as well. But as we had to create a whole new domain to let people outside of the URJ access this site, we had to create a user password for every individual who wanted to come in based on that domain, and we had to give them a password that then they would need to reset. And these pain points, and they were pain points, got in the way of our success because the user password we gave out looked like an email address. It was not an email address, but I don't want another email address, is what we heard over and over again. We learned that as the year went on, as 2013 went on, as great as SharePoint is for internal communication and collaboration, it was not going to be an ideal way to engage our external users. We saw Yammer soon after it was purchased by Microsoft and realized that people would probably find it more comfortable in the way that it looked, in the way that it felt. It really did look like LinkedIn and like Facebook, and we made the tough choice to kind of throw out all of that work that we had done and relaunch this as a Yammer network instead. And we saw our users really embrace the new platform, and we saw new challenges arise as well. So just to recap real quick, and to please keep in mind, this was all happening before Teams, before Slack, So we looked at, the listservs had been around for about 25 years or so. After that time, we had about 5,000 email addresses subscribed, and you would assume that after that long, there were a lot of dead emails in there, a lot of folks who had subscribed to more than one listserv in there. And then we launched SharePoint in 2013, and after about a year, we had about 1,200 users in there, which we were pleased with, but it was not the success that we had hoped to gain. And we launched our Yammer network in July of 2014, and in 5 years now, we have almost 13,000 users. So we've learned a lot, and there are still challenges to be sure. We're just trying to get folks to adopt this new platform and to engage with the new platform as well. So, and that goes for staff too. And so, though we announced this change for the Yammer platform before it was made, I got an email the day it was launched from one of our VPs. Can someone please explain to me what Yammer is and why I would want to have another place to check for messages? You just launched Yammer, I'm sure you're. So, and this is from one of our VPs who was aware of this change. But that is, I've never forgotten that, and I was so thrilled to come across that as I prepared for this, that I had to put that in, because that really speaks to a lot of the challenges that we have faced. So there's lots of good in the Yammer platform, and there's lots of stuff that we hope is going to be fixed and addressed in the years to come. So let's just go through one of the things we would love to see next. So this is often the first thing that our users see when they come into our external network. The first thing it says, please enter your work email address. No. You don't need to enter your work email address. Any email address will work fine, and a lot of the folks who come into our Yammer network are, how shall I say this in a nice way, old. And so they no longer work, and they see this, and they think, okay, fine, you don't want me to come into your space, great. I'll just go away and sit in the dark. And go, no. You can put in whatever email address you want. It says Yammer is an open network for our organization. That's not true. We tightly control who comes into that space, and we don't want it to be an open space, and we don't want our users to think it's an open space. Also, even if somebody has an account that they've forgotten how to log in, they will find themselves at this page. So what happens when they find themselves at this page? They do what it says. They enter a work email address. But that's what you should do only if you're there for the first time. Is there a laser thing here? So, so real small down here it says have an account, log in. They never click there because it's very, very hard to see. So we would love to see that blown up a bit so that it's easier to use in that way. And once we use Salesforce at the URJ, so we check every name of everyone who tries to get in because we want to make sure that they belong to one of our congregations. And it could take a day or so before we get back to them. But there's no automated response from this page when they request to come in. And they think that it didn't go through, that nobody's gotten back to them. So we wish that we could set it up to send an automated response when somebody requests access. So that, I think there's lots of opportunity on this page. Also, what do I hear a lot when they get in and they look at what the Yammer homepage looks like? What the hell is this mess? And because they look at this and they just see a lot of information on that page. It really does make sense. It's a great tool. We love the way that this works. We love the way that it looks. But it would nice if when somebody came in for the first time, if there were some prompts, if there were some pop-ups along the way. I could get on the phone with somebody and in maybe 3 minutes or so, help them make complete sense of this page. But when they come here and if they don't feel necessarily very comfortable with technology, they're going to be spooked and they're going to leave. So would love to get some. Now, Yammer has made lots of great strides in how their mobile apps work, but for a long time they haven't done everything that the desktop version of Yammer does. They can't activate their account from their phone, and for a long time our users could not access the file library of the groups, which they can now, which is great. They rolled that out this year. We cannot include hashtags in the app, polls, praise, and other things that you can do on the desktop, which is not so strange. That's the way that lots of apps work. But again, that's one thing that those are things that our users have said to us they would like to be able to do from their phones. Also, I put both the thumbs up and thumbs down as far as document management is concerned. When you're dealing with Yammer groups primarily in an external Yammer network, there are no file folders there. They all just appear in a straight flat list, if you will. And though this is something our users often complain about, I actually think it's a very good thing. And I think that, and what I see in our SharePoint sites at the URJ, in our team groups where you do have file folders, they're not used. And if they are used, they're not used well, because nobody really has the time, they think, to put stuff where they should be. So this kind of does embrace that approach, if you will. And we store lots of dues forms. You have to, this may seem odd, but in order to belong, in order to belong to a congregation, you have to pay dues. And you have to pay those dues each month, and if you get a bill each month, and if you don't pay those dues, you can't belong to the congregation. So we have lots of dues forms. So if I have lots of dues forms, I may put those dues forms in a folder called dues, in a folder called forms, in a folder called 2018, and on. And then if somebody else wants to find that, they need to think like me. And nobody wants to think like me. And even if I put it in that deep, it could be hard for me to find. So we could use search in the Yammer platform, but if we open up a file there, because when we first began to use it, it was not connected to Office 365, but it is now, so that when we open up a file now, it does open up in Word. We can edit that file right there as well. But we also can use hashtags as well. So rather than putting one file in one folder, we can attach multiple hashtags, thereby you can see it as kind of putting one file in a number of virtual folders at a time, and makes it much easier to share, I think, and much easier to find. We would like to see the way that topics work enhanced a bit. We'd like to be able to do more of a nested search there, if you will. We want to find files that say maternity leave and policy, but we can't really do that yet. We'd like to see search enhanced, and we'd like to see the hashtag functionality enhanced as well, which we believe that's going to take place. Also, so on the plus side, the comment field in Yammer is Very clear, very simple, and very easy to use. It just rolls out rich text, so you can make your text bold and italicized, which even LinkedIn and Facebook does not. And you can also attach files straight from your desktop from the Yammer group file library that you're in, or you could go to one of the other groups in your Yammer network. And if you're on a Yammer internal network, you can connect to a SharePoint document library as well. And thank God they also include GIF files. Because what's your workday like with no GIF files? Laugh if you will, but when you attach a GIF file to a Yammer post, the engagement in that Yammer post goes up. And people are annoyed by it. Nobody's going to say, I love GIF files. But if you include one, your Yammer post will get read more.
I love GIF files.
Thank you.
I'm the guy. I love them.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. So also looking back on our listserv emails, they still say to me, Larry, will you just bring back the email listserv? This is the email list. But to look at this, I don't know why. Where is the content? It's so hard to find amongst all of the mess of what the email that goes back and forth often looks like. In the Yammer platform, everything is very clear, in line, very easy to read. We see who made the post, what she said, when the post was made, who replied, when they replied. It's all clean, it's all right in line, and I think more and more people have come to appreciate how that works. Also, another advantage of Yammer is now that it is a deeply integrated part of the Office 365 suite. And when you are thinking about how to best share information and collaborate with others at your organization, Yammer can now be an important part of that success. So I think, as you may have seen before, Yammer, or Microsoft frames this as the inner and outer loop. Since Teams has rolled out, and other apps as well, one thing we all hear a lot is, what do I use when? The way that Microsoft talks about this is that Teams is for the inner loop, for that date-driven, project-focused, high-velocity work. And then Yammer is for the outer loop, when it's time to be shared with the rest of the organization, either when it's done or perhaps even before it's done, so you can start to get input from the rest of the team. Or you could look at it like this. Teams is the conference room. We're all in the space. We're going to get this work done. We're not going to leave here until the work is done. And then Yammer's the water cooler, where that starts to get out to the rest of the organization, and the rest of the organization can comment, give you feedback, and talk about what you did over the weekend as well.
Yeah, another way to put it is, you build the widget in Teams, and then you launch the widget, and then you talk about the widget with the rest of the company in Yammer.
Yeah. And if you think about this in terms of, if you start with a piece of information that you are trying to share, or that you are trying to work with, that will often start in OneDrive. We create the file, we add the content, we save the file, and then we share that either to a SharePoint library or directly to Teams. And you can share it straight from OneDrive to Teams, or through SharePoint over to Teams. And then in Teams, this is the place where the work is going to be done. And again, you can connect to that SharePoint library to collaborate on the content. Once the work is done, you can share that out to your Yammer network from there. And again, in an internal Yammer network, you can connect straight to that SharePoint library as well. And one other way to look at it, I don't know how many ways we can look at this, but is, so SharePoint is kind of the underlying grid of all of this. OneDrive is for you, Teams is for your small group, and Yammer is for the whole organization. I think the key thing is Microsoft recognizes, and rightly so, that we all don't work the same way. And different tools, any one of these tools are going to work as a robust collaboration tool, from OneDrive to SharePoint to Teams to Yammer. And there are lots of ways to get that work done. What do you like the best? What is the culture of your organization going to support? There are lots of ways to do that. Yammer does connect to Flow, or you can use Flow a lot in Yammer for repeated tasks and such. You can do your collaboration. You can now embed Yammer conversations in SharePoint, which I think is relatively new. And then of course you can work with Teams and OneDrive as well. They all actively stand alone as collaboration solutions, as I said, and you can choose what you prefer to work with the most. And as far as what's going to come in Yammer in years to come, they just rolled out rich text. As Michael said before, we will soon be able to indicate the best response, which we're going to really embrace for our external network. You'll be able to indicate question or answer message types. It's not always so clear in the way that somebody chose to write that. So you can go in and say, no, this is the response, and it's the best response. Is making it easier to create live events between Stream and Teams. I haven't done that yet myself, but I hear it's really gotten a lot easier in just the past month or two. And soon we'll be able to pin posts to the top of the page as well, which will be really nice as well. And then at the URJ, just a couple of the other tools that we use to help with our day-to-day management of the platform. We use Swoop Analytics to evaluate on an ongoing basis the level of activity in our different Yammer networks, identify top users and groups, and to get deep insights on Yammer activity as well. In fact, Swoop just did a big worldwide benchmarking study of Yammer networks, and the URJ was like in the top 3 of the top performing Yammer networks in the world. So we were really thrilled to hear that. And then we use Aware as well, which was formerly known as Wiretap, and that just lets us stay, if I may say, aware of what's going on in our Yammer network. So if we want to know whenever somebody posts about guns, which they post about guns quite a bit in our Yammer network, how to be safe, how to keep our congregation safe, we can always get an alert to let us know a post was just made about guns. We want to come and look here. And then we can also set it up so that if certain keywords are used in a post, we can have an automatic email response to that, which can link to whatever information we want them to see either in our Yammer network or on the web, wherever that information may be. And then as far as keys to a successful Yammer network, and I think this would apply to whatever technology platform you have, first of all, give it time. It's not like you're going to launch your Yammer network on day 1, and on day 2 it's going to be a raging success. It takes time. It's not going to happen in a week or a month or a year. It's going to take time. So just but it will, if you really devote yourself to that, that time will pay off. And don't let this be overseen by a team, or don't let it just get out there and live on its own. It's got to get some love, and it's got to get some attention as well. And so really make sure there is somebody who's keeping a close eye. You need to get leadership of your organization engaged. This is still a challenge for us. A year after we launched our Yammer network, I got a new boss. And I was on my first call with her, with our team, and she said, okay, one of the first things I need to do, I need to set up an email group for our team, and I'll get that done by the end of the day, and we'll be in touch. I didn't even know her that well yet, and I said, wait a minute. I said, could you instead please set this up as a private group in our internal Yammer network? Thank God she said, yes, you're right, we'll do that. We have not set up an email group to this day, and because she was able to support that, that went a long way to our success. Again, we still don't see the amount of leadership engagement I would like to see for ourselves, but whatever you can get is a plus. Encourage transparency and generosity. When people adopt and use your Yammer network, that means that people can see their work in a new way, and this needs to be okay. We're all so used to keeping our work to ourselves in lots of ways. You're asking them now to work in this new way, and we really need to recognize how our habits and our work behavior play into this, because you're asking people to change the way that they work. It's really important to recognize that you're asking people to change the way that they work, to change their work. It may be somebody who likes to work in a cocoon, and now you're asking them to come out. So at the URJ, what we began to work with Working Out Loud, which is a great book by John Stepper, about it's really more geared around how to effectively network in today's online world, but it really speaks to the work we were trying to do in the tent. So we created Working Out Loud groups at the URJ for URJ staff, where small groups of 4 to 6 of us would meet for 1 hour a week for 12 weeks. Each individual would pursue a goal of their own and learn how to work out loud in pursuit of that goal. And we did about 20 Working Out Loud groups. And it really got people more comfortable with the idea of working in this new, open, transparent way. So that was really key to our success as well. And then my last slide. So more information. There's a lot of great information in the Microsoft Tech community. I blog about our Yammer work quite a bit at glickmanonline.com, so go there. And lots of great information on workingoutloud.com as well about how to help folks make that change. So happy to answer any questions, or we can call it a wrap, or whatever works.
I got one. So, how many groups do you have within the network?
It's hard.
How are they organized?
So self-organized. I can actually go into our network live and just show you. They are really not organized in the way that would have.
Oh, I didn't mean to imply that they needed.
Well, they do. No, they absolutely do need. There. Of course, there is an organization of some kind, but make sure I'm right network here. So the only groups that you see on the page are the groups that you have joined, and they're pinned to the left side of your screen. It's going to come up here soon. And then they're just listed in order of their frequency of use by you, and there's no way to sort that by name or stuff like that, which again is one more pain point, but I think it's an approach that makes sense. The ones that you use are at the top of the list.
I guess where I was going with the organization question is it around are there groups for each congregation, or are there groups for topics of interest that span congregations, or what's most popular?
Sure. So the tech was launched with groups based around primary areas of interest of congregational life. So there is a temple administration group, there's a communications group, there's a worship group.
So
Stuff
that's
like
like
that.
horizontal topics that
Yeah.
span the geographic.
Right, but then the fact is that anybody can create a group. We can't prevent somebody from creating a group. And we really saw that there was a lot of potential there for like a congregation board to create a group of their own, to do their work, to share information there. So we create groups and we create Yammer networks for congregations as well. So when you ask me how many groups we have, I would need to look into that, because these groups are made all the time. So. But you can always click on, it says, on groups up here, and you will see a listing of all of the groups that are there.
Sorry.
Please.
I have a bunch of questions all related to that topic, just because I'm trying to gain, observations of habits and what works. So, did you do anything in the way of guidance or tutoring to people who create groups to say, hey, we already have a group like that, or maybe you want to put that topic over here, a structure that already exists?
So people have created groups that we didn't want to create, or they either created groups that they shouldn't have made, or they created groups that already exist. Yeah. And so we'll just reach out to them and say, hey, I didn't know if you were aware or not. And they'll often create a group instead of making a post, like they just don't get it.
Yeah.
And so we just keep an eye on things and we deal with it. We've had to kick very few people out of the tent. We've had to kick a few out, to be sure, but we do have some community guidelines, and most everybody behaves themselves just fine.
So how do you monitor content for something that is not within the guidelines?
Well, again, we use that aware tool, and that not only we can put in specific words there we want to keep an eye out for, but we also look at it. And there was, to go back to guns, there was a conversation in one of our groups where they got into it, right, about guns, and I warned somebody 2 or 3 times. And he said, well, if you don't want my point of view, you might as well kick me out of the tent. I'm like, okay.
So just being from a hospital system, we're very concerned about the information that goes out there. So is this covered under like the Office 365 tenant when it comes to high trust and security?
Yeah, so I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. I work for Microsoft. I get this question a lot from customers. So as long as you have an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, the online terms of online services cover Yammer
and externally
all
as
of
well.
that, yes. So it's a shared responsibility, obviously, between Microsoft and the customer. We can't control what information your users post to the system, but once they post it into the system, it's protected under the terms of the contractual agreement. Tools like the one that was mentioned here that can look for certain types of information are great. There are capabilities that are coming to Yammer. They're not fully available yet to include it in the umbrella of the e-discovery and information policy architecture that already applies to SharePoint. We're working to do that as well.
So the DLP policy
Right.
and everything else will still be active.
And you'll be able to have rules that will execute against Yammer eventually
So the Yammer's not in.
Always on the horizon.
Always on the horizon. Make it easy for our size team. Always be ready to go.
But you got it now in person, right? You know, you can look for, health identifiers.
PHI. We're still trying to get down that road, but.
Yeah, there are a lot of, the reason I mention it is there are a lot of capabilities that exist already that I see that customers aren't fully taking advantage of, even, you know, SharePoint exchange with the DLP policies exist.
Now, well, we've been telling people that they can't put PHI in secure information, but I'm getting pushback, and especially with rolling out OneDrive, that becomes difficult for users if you want them to use OneDrive instead of ShareDrive or something.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get our.
Yeah, there's kind of a, you know, you have to take a multi-pronged approach, and it's a never-ending thing, because you have new users coming into the organization all the time, right? So educate them about the terms of service that you set as an organizational policy, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and then people have to be reminded of that periodically. So at Microsoft, we have annual training and, you know, quote business conduct, where we get to see the same information repeated and reinforced every year. And then there's the trust but verify aspect of things, which is selective random audit. You know, take a look at what's on somebody's drive and their OneDrive and find a problem, educate that individual, and then look for patterns of problems where you can amplify your organizational education.
Actually, a question for Amita, because it came up in a conversation yesterday.
Amita?
Just healthcare.
Just kidding.
So it, you know, doctors and nurses, front lines, sometimes there's a need, somebody's not there, the doctor, the nurse, and there's a need to collaborate some personal information of a patient. And I've heard all kinds of stories with other customers about, you know, just use text messaging.
Oh, God, no, don't do that.
Do you provide capabilities at your organization for them to do that?
We have a couple different options. At some of our hospitals, we have it, not everywhere yet. We use a product called PerfectServe, which is a secure texting tool. I mean, text is built in there. There's other pieces to that as well. We have the famous, you know, our yearly training, you know, is very specific against PHI, sharing information, you know, protected health information, whatever. So we do the training. We just have to incorporate more on it. So we have tools, you know, we tell people what they shouldn't do. Yeah. It's an ongoing,
Right.
That's why I'm asking even with Yammer, because I could see some things, you know, happening that could do some communications over what we're doing. Yeah, if that's protection as well.
And it's interesting, I get asked a lot, how do I share a post in Yammer over email with my board? And I'm like, you can't. You can always copy and paste something, but that's not the way that the platform is built. You want to bring them in into the secure space.
Just looking at what you have, the word apps sticks out to me because of SharePoint is these apps are now called. Is this an actual app in Yammer? You see the app directory there?
There is a directory of third-party apps that you can integrate into Yammer. It's not a huge collection of tools, but do you want to say anything else about the apps that are there? Or
Yeah,
there's not much there, and
for the Yammer apps themselves, yeah. I mean, Yammer itself is an app.
Right.
Yeah. And then, so you have the ability to do the app store. There are some stuff you could put into Yammer. There's not a lot. I mean, honestly, Teams it has a lot more focus.
Yeah.
We built Teams for more of that app integration, because that you're doing more than just talking to people inside Teams. Where Yammer, there isn't a whole lot there. But we have some third-party customers that have a lot of integration things they've done with Yammer. We're also pulling Yammer into Teams, which then will open up a whole bunch of other apps you can have integrated with Yammer. It's going to be interesting where that journey goes, because that's going to really create some So different places Yammer can go than it could in the past. So, yeah, but there isn't a lot there.
And you said you can incorporate Yammer into SharePoint. Does it have to be modern sites still?
Yeah, so the
Can you put it
integration,
classic?
the integration between Yammer and SharePoint relies on Office 365 groups. So you have to have Office 365 authentication turned on for your Yammer network, and then that integrates Yammer network to your Active Directory. So then every time you create a group in Yammer, then there'll be an Office 365 group, which is a security mechanism connected to that.
But there's also the Yammer web part.
That's going the direction from Yammer to there, and then if you're in SharePoint, you want to pull the Yammer that way.
Yeah, I was thinking putting Yammer into SharePoint,
Okay,
but I,
So Yammer, the Yammer web part, do those work in classic pages as well as modern pages?
Only modern.
that's what I thought, so it's still only.
Yes, there's,
One more thing on the classic pages is that list and library user experience is important modern and depending on what wave that's in, that's already happened or is happening this month. So people are going to get a lot of user experience, whether they like it or not at some level at some point.
We've been using the modern for lists and libraries, but we are a classic site and it's heavily customized. And our timing was wonderful because right after we rolled out our brand new Office 365 SharePoint site, modern sites came out.
we launched a SharePoint intranet right as we introduced both our internal and external Yammer networks. And the intranet site was launched by our HR team, who do HR, and they know what forms need to be shared and all that. And the Yammer networks were launched by me, who are trying to get folks engaged. The end result of that is nobody ever used the SharePoint site, and we just came over to our Yammer networks, where that was all it was all there what people wanted it to do. So the SharePoint site kind of just died on the vine, and our Yammer network really took off.
So metrics are success. You use Yammer both physically and URJ.
Yes.
How do you measure engagement, or do you track the metric of % of users who are engaged?
Sure. So we use Swoop to look at that every week and every month. And we see our engagement rates range from about 20% on the low end to about 45% on the high end. It really depends on what time of year it is, what time of year in the temple year it is. Are folks trying to plan for the year to come? Is it a Jewish holiday soon? Things are going to slow down a bit. So it really depends on events and time of year. I can come up with any excuse why we have a low rate that much. Oh, look, it's Friday. So, yeah, but I have a group in our home network where I track all of that for everybody to see. Nobody looks, but it's there.
Track like what % of your overall external membership is Yammer?
What percentage of the overall? The overall membership is tough to gauge because we will let anybody who is affiliated with a congregation attend. It's really designed though if you're on the board or if you work at a congregation. So we don't look at it like that. We just see what our month-to-month growth is like in the number of accounts and in the number of folks engaged and the number of likes and the number of replies and all that.
And in terms of the internal use within the internal URJ organization, like what % of employees are using?
So there are some teams that have really embraced it, some who have not. Some prefer to just chat in Zoom all day, which I just don't get. But our internal rates are actually quite strong, about 65%. Or so, because there's more and more key information is shared there.
Could I add something quick? When teams started coming up, did you guys have that conversation, like where?
Sure. So
maybe
at first, our IT department didn't want to launch Teams. I'm like, why don't you just launch it and see what people think? And okay. And so it's been embraced to an extent. I think that the groups who use it really like it a lot, but where we're not thinking. At the end of the day, people still like to send emails back.
Yeah.
This is the way they work for years. And so I just find it helps to, when I do my work, I try to use the tools that we have and try to bring people along that way. And like I said, it takes time, but
Yeah, just if I could add there too, we are actually fighting against that now, just turning Teams on and letting people adapt it, because we believe there needs to be a strategy.
Yep.
And the very least, what you should do is pick a work group that is really excited about trying to use Teams, and then grab your CSM or grab something from Microsoft, whoever your technical person is, and help you build a strategy around making that team successful. Then they become your advocates to show other folks how to use it. We've had a lot of that. All the first year of Teams, it was great. Let's go see how everybody uses it so we can learn. But now all those people are stopped using it because they didn't learn best practices. So we actually believe that's the wrong way to do it now. And then secondly, I would say that yes, the older generation likes to use email. The younger generation does not. So that's where it's going to be important that tools like Teams and chat and those other things do become integrated into the workforce, because millennials don't want to use email.
now I get to disagree with you,
Sure.
if I may.
I'm just going off a study, so yeah, feel like I want to hear about the real world.
I was doing work with a group of 35-year-olds in our Yammer network. I created the group. I said, you guys are going to love this. We're going to get this. And they're like, what is this? What are you trying to do to us?
Yeah.
And they like to text.
Yeah, exactly.
They like to use Instagram, but this was a real departure for them as well. And after about 2 months,
It's the persistent, the part of it that Teams addresses is the persistent chat.
yeah,
So that persistent thread, that persistent chat, that really fits in with how millennials talk, because they have these groups on their phones, they're talking to all their friends, and it's ongoing conversation over years and years and years, and that's how they've been doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's where Teams hits that, where email doesn't really do. I mean, try to follow a thread in an email, it's really hard, right? So that's how, just what we found. So but you're right. I think, but that again goes to the case, showing them how to use it.
yeah.
You know, I mean, this is how you use Teams to make it effective for that group.
So a couple of things I'd like to add. I've got a
I know we're talking about Teams and not Yammer now, but.
got a client where the first thing that we did was address the Teams governance issue and made sure that we nailed it down very, very tightly. We defined a group within the organization that has a set of issues that are extremely narrow and well-defined. And the first team that was created was actually a production team targeted at that, because it was so well-defined. And then the second team that was created, all of this happened, by the way, the day before yesterday. So,
Fresh in your mind.
yeah. So the second team that was created was a test team for the IT department, so that they could become more familiar with it, start to get a feel for how they wanted to steer the governance as a whole within the organization, and drive it from there. We're also really looking at Yammer components, and what we're looking at doing is actually embedding Yammer inside Teams with a tab.
Yeah.
So the whole integration into the Teams umbrella with all of these tools with the different functions is going to work out
Which
great.
I didn't get to, but yes, you can absolutely embed a Yammer group into Teams, and we're hoping that soon we'll be able to do the same thing with Teams into Yammer. That's on my wish list.
I really like the slide that you had where you talked about Teams as your conference room.
Yeah.
And your water cooler.
You can feel free to use that.
Before you go to town.
But yeah.
From one Larry to
There we go, okay, good.
Well, you do say Larry.
I'm not talking in the third person.
Dash Larry at the end of it.
But it really is true, though, is that, the nice thing about Teams is you can use it when time allows, and it helps break down in global organizations. I see it breaks down time zone barriers, right? more useful when everybody is in there at the same time, even in a small work group. But with Yammer, I use it a lot in this context. It's in the evenings, I go and I throw my customer questions out there and whatnot, and then in the morning I come back and I hard look the answers.
Yeah.
I see who looked at my question overnight.
Yeah.
And it's
You talked a little bit about governments. A couple people had that question, or more of a statement of using the governments. Is there like a repository of good practices or governance examples, things that have really worked and things that you truly don't want to do, and things stuff like that, or do you have something in your policy?
I'm not sure my policy is going to help much because it's all based around the Ten Commandments for us, because we have to share it with you. And it says, your participation is guided by the teachings and values of our tradition. So we thought, why not put a little bit of a Jewish spin on it? Do not share that which is not yours to share. Advertising and spam are not kosher. What happens is so it's okay to have. And
Can you share this?
of course. And at one point, I had a lot more of these now.
It just needs a chip, and it'd be all set.
Exactly. So I think that my own take on this is that governance documents are fine. In an external network like this, nobody cares. And you just have to keep an eye on things. And like I said, when you're in a network this large, I think folks know that lots of people see their posts and they're not going to misbehave.
For the internal, they use a similar document, or?
And again, so one thing I went through with my HR team is they wanted me to not make it possible for people to create groups because they didn't want groups in our Yammer network that didn't have anything to do with work. And I said, that's really hard. I said, I can't make it so somebody can't create a group. And these are the things that will often make people feel comfortable with the platform itself. I asked them, can I create a pets of the URJ group? Because, when we're on Zoom calls all day, you'll see the cat walk by or the dog bark. and so people love their pets. So I thought it might be fun to be, and they said no. And so we checked with our legal team on this, no. And I'm sure they gave our legal team a call and said, we shouldn't be able to do this, right? They're like, no, right, you don't want to do this. and I'm like, fine. And then a month goes by and I forgot why, but then they came back and said, fine, okay, you can let them create groups. So we have a Pets of URJ. We have we're based in New York, of course. So we have a Broadway group for folks who love to see Broadway shows. I created a bookcases of URJ group because we all have the bookcases behind us on Zoom. What is your bookcase? So and we have food groups, and so it's all good. And if that's the way that somebody can feel more comfortable with the platform, then that's great, and that becomes a really valuable tool. And with groups like that, and with our Working Out Loud groups as well, what people have said to me is that we have gotten to be close friends with people we otherwise wouldn't have even met. And in fact, we even have a Working Out Loud relationship now. There are two people who have really hooked up as a result of their time in Working Out Loud. So that's great, and so be it. They're not very active in our Yammer now.
I think you raised a really good point in that if you can find a fun way that still meets your governance model, to allow people to interact, that's going to drive adoption.
Yeah. If you think that you can have somebody walk in your front door and make them talk only about work all day, then fine. You should not allow them to create groups. But if people talk about their kids or the movies they saw, which of course they do, then you should allow for those groups as well.
Yeah, one of the things I joke about with students is everybody should create a football pool, section for Yammer, so,
There should be an app.
Yeah.
A football pool app, yeah, so. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
One more thing?
Questions on the phone?
It's okay. I was just telling you, Larry, earlier that I am aware of another environment out there which has tens of thousands of users looking at, and they started using it before Microsoft bought Yammer.
Yeah.
Very successful. One thing that they still struggle with right now is when people come in, as you mentioned before, it's so overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff on the left side, middle, and the right side, especially if you're coming in as a new user or new employee. How do you handle that right now?
Well, so when they come in, there's no groups on the left, right? Because they haven't joined groups yet.
Right.
So that's empty. But so we used to do regular instructional webinars. And we have a lot of how-to files as well, which I don't think that people look at very much. I'm going to go back to what I said before. It's time and use. They just got to spend some time and poke around. And I say to them, and we do have lots of older folks here, and they get wrapped up so tight about, they're so scared that they're going to do the wrong thing or break it, and I'm like, let's just spend a little time on the phone, scroll here, look here, and what I always advise is just scroll through your homepage, newsfeed. You're going to see all the posts, all the groups. Choose to join the groups that you like, and that's it. And then just explore from there. So. That it's just time, and compel them to come back here, as this is the only place where certain information is going to be shared. They're going to be left out of things unless they figure out a way to come here. And then for our staff, I send out an email once a month. What's happening in our URJ staff network? I don't include lots of content in that, but I say, did you see this post that talks about this link? This important file was shared. You really need to see this link. So we link them back to the stuff that they need to see. And I'm told over and over again, this is the most valuable email we get because it helps us stay aware of what's going on. So.
Have you noticed at all since you brought that tool in and kind of engaged everyone? You probably haven't checked it out, but have you noticed that maybe employee turnover has went down just to, coming in and being engaged and feeling like it's more of a family when they come to work?
That's interesting. I haven't looked at it.
I
will say yes. It's certainly, I got a wonderful compliment the other day that I'll share with you because you brought this up, but that implementation of the Yammer network has really changed the culture of the URJ, changed the culture of the reform group as well.
That's great.
That people are just more open, and they're trying to share, they're trying to learn from one another, teach one another as well. So that's all so good.
Thank you.
Any questions on the phone?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay.
No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let's just switch back over to the other guy. So actually, if you want to show the adoption, their adoption resource site.
Oh, yeah, we brought that up before, right?
Yeah. I think that might have been.
I'm getting there.
That looks like a really strange looking window.
Don't call anybody. Okay. I'm getting there. So what's the
resources section?
We have.
I brought that up. Yep.
Yeah.
So there was a question about best practices here, and you'll see there's a Yammer adoption guide. By the way, this adoption hub is new. It just came out recently. And so there's a Yammer adoption guide as well as the others. And in the Yammer adoption guide, let's take a look. You got your success guide, the playbook, use case catalog, Yammer superpower infographic, a bunch of resources there. So if you're looking for best practices, some of that's going to be in there.
What was the one?
So resources.techcommunity.microsoft.com/adoption.
I think the hardest thing we find is just getting the governance done. Coming up with the governance and getting that rolled out.
Yeah, governance is the biggest hurdle right now for most folks, is there's just some things legal departments aren't prepared to allow you to do yet. Persistent chat has been the biggest one for us that I found my customers. They just don't want conversation. Legal doesn't like conversations sitting around for years on end, right? So
That's one of our team issues, because we don't save Skype conversations.
Yeah.
But we don't have it,
So you can set it now for teams at least, you can set conversations to 30 days.
Yeah.
We're working on lowering that.
Another question then. Do you identify the groups that have gone stale or unused, and do you clean them up or eliminate them somewhere?
Rarely. They just kind of go down to the bottom of the list over time. We have recently rolled out verified groups. So I don't know if you saw there, some of our groups had a check mark next to them. That just means that we trained a moderator to keep an eye on those groups. All the files were named in a specific way. Every post gets a reply, every post gets hashtags, so that over time, folks have learned that those are really robust groups, and we've seen the adoption of those groups shoot through the roof. So that has really worked out well for us. And then we just put in a check mark to show that those are the verified groups.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Asif, was there other things you
Oh,
wanted to bring up?
nothing big, actually. So at the conference, I was talking to Michael earlier, Jeff Teeper, those of you who know him, he has come back to the conference as the main honcho basically in top SharePoint. And we've seen huge improvements, I'm sure, in the last few years. And one of the things he mentioned was SharePoint, I don't know if people know, but it's the biggest consumer of Azure in the world. Think about it, that's very true. But also, on the flip side, so I did a few sessions there at SBC as well, and one of the things that a person asked over there regarding Teams was, well, we're going towards Teams, so we don't need SharePoint anymore, right? We should just focus on Teams adoption. Right? There's a lot of disconnect from that as to Teams is, of course, a surface. There's all the services are driven from other applications like SharePoint. You can't have Teams without SharePoint. So that disconnect still exists, I feel. But I think the SharePoint team, the Microsoft team, is doing a great job right now to connect the dots, especially because a lot of our former MVPs, as you know, have actually become Microsoft employees. They understand the kind of questions that we go through when they're willing to communicate. The things like, Larry, you were mentioning before about the inner circle, outer circle, your analogy, I think is better than Microsoft's analogy. Sorry, no offense, but that water cooler analogy.
You may want to
pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, we struggle with that one. So, yeah, we've all customized our message. We don't use it. The inner outer loop.
Really quick, because they will steal it.
It's done. Larry and I have adapted it. We've got it. It's all right. No, that inner outer loop applied doesn't work really well with customers. That's why I say the widget. You build your widget in your team, you take it out, then you talk about it. So, yeah, agreed.
Yeah, that analogy is also, one of the other things that I heard at the conference also is, we have Yammer, we have Teams. And Teams has been awesome, but it's miserably failing because everybody's creating Teams, and if nobody knows what to do, and now we have two versions of the truth. Where do I go for conversations? So they actually killed Teams. unfortunately, and they're gonna restart all over again. Because of exactly what you said, and you're the first Microsoft person that I heard saying that don't use Teams before you have a governance plan.
Yeah.
You're the first one.
That's CSU, that's what we're doing at the CSU, I mean, and our job is adoption, so, I believe that hasn't gotten all the way to the organization, but, in fact, we just redid all our teams.
Okay,
We're calling it Teams 2.0, we did the same thing, we
wonderful.
junked them all, and
Yeah.
we created a standard of how we want our teams created, and they all have to fall within that template, and it's working really well, and so that's what we're going back to our customers and saying, you know, you
It's
gotta.
such a wonderful product, but just like SharePoint, in the early days had this challenges where people started doing it and they didn't know what they were doing, so then it failed, and they blamed the product, not the governance, that was not there.
Yep.
Another thing, the last thing is communication of governance. You guys talked about governance, but communication of governance at the right time when the people need it is a must. I was talking to another gentleman over there at the conference, a SharePoint administrator. He's like, my governance is not working. People just don't know that they're not supposed to create subsets under subsets under subsites, and things like that. I'm like, okay, well, can I see your governance document? Can I just take a look at it? He's like, okay, I gotta find it. Let me find it. What did I tell you? I mean,
Yeah.
you don't know where it is, and how do you do that? So,
Documents never
It's
uh,
work.
gotta be enforceable too.
it's gotta be
So if
enforceable.
you say, don't create subsites, you better go and turn off subsites.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can tell you, so one of my customers, I won't say their name right now, but we went over and over that, and they actually finally agreed to this. You have to request a team, at least through the first 6 months. And through the request process, you have to go through the governance checklist of how they want the teams run, what you can and can't do. Once it's created, it's yours, you own it, you do whatever you want with it. But you have to go through that initial process, which is really helping with the early pilot.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Cheryl, how much of your governance documentation is used internally can you share with customers?
Yeah.
All of it. All of it, yeah, sure.
How do we get some of
Yeah,
those?
no, we don't, yeah, I'll be glad to share. I will share what we built, and then I can share what some customers have done without using customer names. I'll be glad to share that, yeah.
Because that's kind of what's holding us up
Yeah.
as teams. We've turned it off. People have to request it. We have a naming convention we're using. But, and I've let the IT people, but then it's the same thing. They all want something, but they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they want. And we still use that collaboration site. Again, before Teams came out, we called our collaboration sites and SharePoint team sites. So now it's so confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the naming convention thing's a big one too, and that's part of that process that this customer's doing, is they can say, I want to name it this, but then it gets automatically formatted into the naming convention.
So what is your naming convention? Sure.
Oh, it's very straightforward. At this point, it's nothing official. It's just what what our group came up with to use. It's just TM dash. Because when we do our Outlook stuff, like our distribution list, have a DL in it, our conference. So we just
From a group standpoint, yeah, you got the group, yeah.
So,
Now, one of the things that I've been recommending to clients is avoid the use of spaces, because when you start scripting things, it makes it easier to deal with. Instead, camel case, everybody familiar with camel case? Where you capitalize the first letter of each word, but don't use spaces. You get the humps of the capital letters.
That's group search though, Chad. Okay, keep going.
Depends on whether the search is word boundary based or not. If it's not word boundary based, then it works fine. But in the description, you can include regular verbiage, and that works. But we've also started recommending that well, I'm dating myself here. There's a variant of camel case called Hungarian notation, where you prepend some sort of a tag onto the front, and the most important one to use is something like ext for anything that you're going to make external. So it's immediately aware to whoever's looking at it, anything that's posted here is going to be externally available outside the organization.
Yeah, that's what we do with our teams. We put ext, that's exactly what we do with our external teams, so we know. And with private channel, that's become a little bit more interesting, because you can put an actual private channel. Private channels isn't available using GA yet, but we're using it internally right now as we test it. It will be out soon. But for private channels, even though it's an external facing, you can create a private channel in that external facing that only allows the internal folks to see it. Right. And so a lot of people are really scared about this, especially us, because how do we know it really works? Obviously when it goes out to GA, it'll work, but we're like, what if it doesn't work? And we're putting stuff in there, so we're just testing it. But that's going to be interesting. And we are creating, this again, teams. I apologize, I know Yammer was the focus, but there is an enhancement request that's on the horizon soon that the button to create a team can be customized by the organization to actually have it go through a flow that you want so that you can have it be an approval process. So that's going to come soon too.
If anybody's interested in looking at Teams a little bit more, I'm also the membership chair for the IAMCP, the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners. And we've got a meeting next Thursday somewhere. And the focus is going to be Teams. That you no longer have to be a Microsoft partner to come to a meeting or join the IAMCP. So if you're interested in learning about that, let me know.
We also in the NCR launched what we call Spring into Teams webinar. So we have 7 weekly seminars that go over how to use Teams, including adoption, change, governance, everything. I'll send that to this group. The last webinar just happened. However, they're all recorded. And then there'll be another round. So I don't know why I didn't put it in this group, and I apologize. I should have included this group originally. It's our first round of it, so we were testing it out. But it's been a huge success. So I'll send it to this group as well.
The amount of information that you guys are kicking out is just insane.
It's our next.
There's some
Teams is our next Windows. I mean,
yeah.
That's how we're looking at it.
Teams will be the pane of glass.
It is phenomenal. When you do it right, it's a great tool. It's not perfect, but there's a lot of investment and a lot of focus. So we are making changes as customers need them.
Woohoo!
I see a question.
Of course.
All right, there's something that's bothered me for a long time, so I'm gonna ask it.
That's a lot of you, surprisingly, a lot of people frame their questions to me that way. It starts. It's been bothering me a long time on Microsoft.
I've been in this space for a very long time, especially with Microsoft, SharePoint, all that stuff. And I see these desktop applications like Teams, and there's also a SharePoint, and there's even a Yammer one, others popping up. And I see Google, the main competitor, going the opposite route, where everything is browser-based. What's the reason for doing so many desktop applications instead of trying to retrofit the browsers, the Edge browser, or even the Chrome browser, or whichever?
To make them add-ons. I mean, obviously everything is browser also. I mean, you can go to office365.com and use Teams,
of course,
use the waffle, and it's all browser.
But the big push is in desktop applications, from what I've seen, especially for Teams.
Yeah, I think the integration part is where that comes in. When you talk about app integration and using the API, the Graph API, and all of that, organizations don't like. From Microsoft standpoint, they tell Microsoft they don't like that web browser. They don't feel like there's security.
They're not there yet.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's more because of the organizations.
Yeah. I deal with the on-prem people.
Yeah.
Now I deal with the cloud people, and I'm like, so you're going to move to all of them? They're like, almost. And then as soon as they say that, then you're on-prem and then your desktop.
I would say that's the long-term vision, absolutely. But we have, I mean, everybody knows our big customers are the companies, are the organizations out there, and so they're telling us they're ready for that. So I agree.
And there's even places where when you're trying to interface with some cloud thing, like if you want to get some behavioral aspects tied in with like Business Central or something like that, the desktop app is potentially to be able to do that better than just through open web calls.
Yeah, I just look at OneNote. If you look at OneNote, you look at the OneNote web client versus OneNote app client, that's just night and day.
Yeah.
And we keep saying we're going to get, I'm not, full disclosure, transparency, doesn't leave this room. What stays in the tent? What's in the tent stays in the tent. We say we want you to use the OneNote web app, but honestly, there's this functionality just isn't there.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. So it's going to take time.
Right. The biggest thing is to get off of the Office version.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, because the 2016 release is
exactly.
Yeah,
that's all the main competitors going the Office route, and that's the reason I bring it up.
Yeah, no, it's more because of who our clients are and our customers are, and it's definitely the vision. In my humble opinion, I could be wrong. We'll bring Satya into the next call. I'm sure he has a completely different viewpoint. Sure. That's what I found.
So you mentioned that you're and like what Google will be doing. Why would someone use the web and?
So especially in Chicago, in this area, in this region, customers have been very slow to adopt the cloud. There's a lot of financial services, there's a lot of healthcare in the Midwest, there's a lot of education, government, even government here, and they're very scared, right? So cloud scares them. Right. And so they're just all 4 of my customers are just getting to the cloud right now. So that's probably part of it. I mean, 95% of the Fortune 500 is using Microsoft, and those companies are old companies that have been doing the way they do. We have big IT departments and IT's been great. IT in the last 3 years, their mindset towards the cloud has been the change has been amazing. And I'm very excited about that, but it doesn't mean it. You grab a company like an Archer Daniels who ships food, what do they really care if their stuff is in the cloud? So they've just been slow that way. So then they would never go to Google because the idea of that is just like, that is too much of a radical change, right?
Well, so my approach that I use with customers is that look where everything came from, right? Microsoft, while it's had a consumer targeted audience for some stuff, it was built up around business functionality. And, Google was, consumer stuff.
Yeah.
Apple was consumer stuff. There's a difference in approach to the security that we need especially in a compliance environment when you're dealing with a company that is moving from consumer into the business arena versus one that's been there from the very beginning. When was the last time you heard about Azure getting hacked?
Right, exactly.
But
every day we have a lot of intrusion attempts every day. It's in Microsoft's best interest that no one gets through. So you can better believe we're focused on it, right?
Second most attacked organization in the world.
Yeah.
U.S. government is the only one that's more.
Yeah, it's not only one higher. And they're running a lot of our stuff. So.
Yeah. And I can tell you, as an IT company who sells IT, we have a lot of field users who spend a ton of time on a plane. They are in an airport where even wireless is not an option for them in a substantial way, but they still need to be able to work. They still have emails they have to be replying to. They still have documents and presentations. And so having that desktop client and having something saved locally, now we are using the cloud and we'll save it up and such, but I still need that physical version somehow. Google, I can't do that in the same aspect.
Great point. Yeah.
I mean, that is my number one users who complain on some of our stuff. The majority of my users are literally tied to a desk or use Citrix. Yeah. But it's my mobile users.
If you're an elementary school student to run a Chromebook, that's great. But if you're dealing with business, you got to have
something. Back to Microsoft is built for business, right? Google was built to power search 5 cents at a time. And from that, they figured out a way to compete with Microsoft. They were just two completely different paths. And then Google's saying, okay, how can you attack them? You attack them with the browser, focus on the kids, build them in, get them hooked on it, and then...
Yeah, that is going to be the biggest challenge in the next 10 years. Even now it's happening because these kids have been growing up with Google.
Right, Jack?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually went into a room and we've opened up Word and with a younger person in there. Say, oh, that's just like Google Docs.
My son did that to me the other day.
Yeah, so I mean, my kids have been raised different. So I mean, I get it. So that's going to be a challenge, and Google is going to work at the enterprise, at least the way it is for the bigger enterprises. And so companies are going to have to train those people, and probably already are.
I was going to say, I did that literally 2 days ago for our entire summer intern program. I literally teach them Outlook, local applications, and then I'm now teaching them Teams. But we found...
Check their email?
Well, that's what we teach them Outlook, because they're so used to browser-based stuff that the Outlook application is so different.
It's another good example of how there's a failure in what we're educating our students to be ready for the business world.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that
a lot of colleges are still using Microsoft.
Yeah. Once you make that transition to college.
Good point too. And we're making inroads. I mean, I think we have some devices out there that are going to help in the classroom, and hopefully we'll get Office back into the classroom at a bigger rate than it has in the last 100 years. Well, that's just our standpoint. That's for our stock value, so maybe not everybody wants that, but certainly what I want.
I've got one other thing that I just found out about. At the Toastmasters meeting a week from Friday downtown at noon, we're going to have a non-disclosure requirement meeting with a live demo of the new Circus 2 big screen. So anybody that wants to attend that will have to sign an NDA agreement when they enter the room. But if you're interested in brand new stuff.
And tomorrow is the meeting for the Toastmasters at 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock here.
3 o'clock.
We gather at 3, meeting starts at 3:30, meeting ends at 4:30, and then we'll do some pathways discussion after that.
I'm glad you brought it up because I was noticing that. And I said, I might like to do that, and so thank you.
Yeah, I keep saying I'm gonna show up, but I haven't, but I do.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I'll be here, so, yeah.
We will, I'll be here. My thanks to the team. Thank you all very much.
Thanks,
Did a great job.
Actually, maybe just one more question for Don. So I know Microsoft announced some search enhancements. So just for anyone that's interested in search, where does the native, what does it cover, and what would like to see the info pick up from?
I always just say it like this. Either we're Google on steroids or Microsoft Search on steroids. So you might want to try whatever's out there right now, whatever the initial thing is, and honestly just see if it works. And if it works and gets done what you need to get it done, then go with it. But as soon as you're like, well, as soon as you're a little bit of like, we wish we could do this or we wish we could do that, then look at the third-party tools, and that's where we fit in. So I would always try just out of the box first and then go from there. But thank you for trying to give me a nice segue. I appreciate that. But, always try out of the box first. They keep making it better. It's just until you have somebody who's actually saying, gosh, we need to make this better, you're kind of looking for a problem versus letting one happen and then fixing it.
I guess I always used to say that if you don't have a lot of content, well, then maybe you don't need it. But once you start having content, especially when you're talking millions of documents or something like that, and more sophisticated requirements.
Do you really want me to get on my soapbox, though?
Sure.
So I'll take 2 seconds. So where it really comes down to is what is happening right now, and this is, so the worst thing to think of the search is just how we just described it and just chatted about for 10 seconds, right? Which is, I type in a query, the results come back, and I select one. That is so 2,000, you guys. Where we're at now, if you really wanted to know, you're not having pain for it, you probably won't think about it. But it's just like Leo and I were having, which is a conversation, right? The conversational search is where everything's going. And so that structure that I talked about at the very beginning of the meeting, that is all getting added to the content. And once you have that, then you can start having a discussion, right? Whether it's customer service, whether it's a salesperson, whether it's executive team, it doesn't matter. Search will actually interact with it and say, oh, did you mean this, right? It'll automatically know, expand the query, reduce the query, do all that stuff. Nobody has to do anything. It's just going to happen on the back end. And that's what's going to happen in search. And you're seeing it right now. And it's going to change. It's just people aren't aware of it. And, all right, that's my stuff. If you have more questions, just let me know.
Thank you very much, everyone.